rely on the opinions of career ethics lawyers within each department when they're really not free to give their honest opinion.
Because of the consequences for giving their honest opinion.
Precisely.
Literally being fired from their job. Mr. Carbone, again, your record of independence, objectivity, and professionalism, and I know the letter that you and other alumni wrote, an editorial that you wrote, but could you comment on, I think Mr. Carr's testimony to me, first of all, it was very affecting to me in terms of what the dozens and dozens of career people who forewent earlier in their career, private sector work, law firm work, to be fired, not for cause, but to be fired because of, I don't even want to say politics, because again, these are people who've been in the Department of Justice under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents, but really fired almost in a vindictive way, not for cause. Could you add anything to the testimony about what effect that has on the Department of Justice's ability to protect Americans from serious threats, to hold people accountable who are in public office, or just the conducting of important investigations?
Sure. Well, a couple points. One, it takes years and years to develop expertise in public corruption prosecutions, in tax prosecutions, and when you force out, some of the most experienced people, you create a brain drain. You create an experience drain, and that limits the department's ability to prosecute more complex cases. And if I can just give you a vignette or a story about the random firing early on in this administration, and this straddled Mr. Blanche's time. But one of the first things that became very clear, the Southern District was prosecuting the sitting mayor of New York City. It's a case that, it's all part of the public record, how we felt about the case. But we were directed to dismiss the case for political reasons. And the acting U.S. attorney, the chief of appeals, and the entire case team, led by the acting U.S. attorney, declined because there was no reason for it, and the reasons being offered were purely political. So the office, in that particular instance, lost 5 tremendously talented lawyers, brilliant lawyers. And not to mention what happened when the office declined to dismiss the case, and then Mr. Bove went to the public integrity section and tried to get people to sign off on they superseded the case, took the case, and tried to get people in the public integrity to sign off on the nollie, which is a dismissal, and no one would. And they went right down the line, and people were just fired, one after the other. And that unit was decimated as a result of people standing up and doing the right thing.
And I just want to say that on February 19, 2025, when Bove argued the motion to dismiss the charges before Judge Ho of the Southern District of New York, who dismissed the case with prejudice, Blanche, who was not confirmed yet, but was sitting right there in the front row. And then less than a month later, about 2 weeks later, Blanche was confirmed. This timeline and the facts to me indicate that Blanche knew and was involved in the decision to dismiss the bribery cases against Eric Adams. And it just seems to me so chilling when I hear about the knowledge capacity that's leaving the Justice Department, but also the effect, and I'm hoping you can mention something about this, about what it means now that who's left, or the people in that department, about their freedom to bring about cases or follow the law and follow the evidence to bring cases. It must have an impact on what they're investigating.
Has a tremendous impact. If you see your colleagues and some of the most talented lawyers in the office getting walked out the door by the marshals, like as Mr. Carr was, you're going to think twice about what cases you're opening, what cases you're being asked to work on. And the follow-up to that is we live in a culture of fear. When law firms are pursued but by the Justice Department, and because of who they hire and what clients they have taken on, what law firm wants their partners to be radioactive?
Yes.
Or seen as unfriendly to the Justice Department, who they have to regularly appear before and ask for things, for good graces. So it's very, very troubling. It's a steady erosion in public confidence, and the people who matter most are those career prosecutors. And when they're being chased out the door, that's when we really have to worry.
Okay, I have one more line of questioning for you, Mr. Carbone, if you don't mind, based on some recent reporting from CNN. In January, you obviously remember the horrific killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by federal agents in Minneapolis. Neither of these cases were handled the way we've seen past shootings involving officers handled by the DOJ. In fact, several senior officials in the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office resigned. This is another time where you saw career professionals resigning from the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office. It's reported that the prosecutors saw the video of Renee Good's killing and considered it a potential criminal act, so they opened a civil rights investigation, which was standard protocol to do. I'm wondering, is it accurate that this is DOJ's standard operating procedure for an incident like this, if they're following the evidence? Is that standard?
Absolutely, you would. That's a case, and again, without coming to any conclusions about whether anybody has criminal liability there, or without knowing exactly what happened, I wouldn't conclude that somebody committed a crime, but it is certainly standard procedure to open a case and conduct a civil rights investigation. And let me just add one thing to that. One thing that it is certainly not standard procedure to do is, if you are not going to open up a case and conduct an investigation, to stand in the way of state investigators and authorities from conducting their own investigation for violations of state law, to me, is unprecedented.
And so CNN's reporting that it quickly became apparent to the prosecutors that the criminal section would not be allowed to investigate the shooting, which was confirmed a few days later when Blanche announced on television that there was currently no basis for a criminal civil rights investigation. That, according to what we're saying, is out of order. But then some interesting things proceeded, where Renee Good's a significant other was interviewed and involved in the investigatory process, but not, it seems, to add to a civil rights case, but investigated as being part and parcel to blame for somehow the incident itself. Does that seem legitimate in any way?
Well, I think it has the appearance of being vindictive and